Thank you very much for staying on the program. Welcome back. Now, small and medium-scale importers are being exempted from the implementation of the cargo tracking note system, which takes off from today. The review by the Ghana Revenue Authority is said to have been influenced by expected incomes, which does not justify projected expenditure on this sector. But could the commissioner be cited for contempt going ahead with the system after an application was filed at the Accra High Court to halt the process? George Yafi has more on this.
According to an application filed at the court in Tema by a lecturer at the CAF University College and member of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders, One Kwame Dujak, he argues the implementation of the system would come with some additional cost to businesses. He maintains the Ghana Revenue Authority hasn't got the legal mandate to go ahead with this system, citing regulations covering its own operations. Hence the need to halt the system. We, however, cannot independently establish whether the Ghana Revenue Authority was indeed served with this application. Sources say as at the close of work on Friday, the authority had not received any writ. It is not clear for now the implications of this action on the Ghana Revenue Authority and even the commissioner who was cited in this application. Well, in a statement to the public, the Ghana Revenue Authority maintains the system would only apply to imports that exceed 36 20-foot equivalent units per year. We understand the country could realize about 30 million cedis if it's introduced from this month to the end of this year. The cargo tracking note system was introduced to help assess and value imports into the country and improve revenue. It gives local tax authorities advanced data on shipments for enhanced assessment.
Meanwhile, the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders GIF is still challenging the basis for which the cargo tracking note system is being introduced by the Ghana Revenue Authority. GIF says the policy lacks legal footing, unlike previous systems such as the Advanced Shipment Information. Executive Secretary of GIF, Eddie Akron, fears the CTN will not be able to address loopholes in the shipping industry.
In February this year, government suspended implementation of CTN after initial resistance, calling for further consultation on it. However, the consultation did not go as expected, leading to the disappointment of some stakeholders, including Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders, GIF. According to GIF, implementers of the CTN will have some legal challenges along the way. Speaking to Joy Business, Eddie Akron maintains they are disappointed in the Ghana Revenue Authority.
Like the Vice President instructed, this is what the President said, that this thing has to come at no cost to the Ghanaian importer, be it here in Ghana or in the foreign country where they do their exports. Now, therein lies the difficulty, because we realize that how can you control that? Because the forwarders who are charging out there are not in the Ghanaian jurisdiction, and so you cannot stop their fees from coming. That is number one. You understand? Number two, you still have the legal issues pending, that there is no fundamental law that covers this particular policy, which is a problem. Because what happens? If we ask now, what is the penalty for a breach of the CTN? That if I do not do the CTN, what would happen to me? They have no answers.
Meanwhile, Chairman of GIF, Alexis Siama, says the CTN is a duplication of Cargo Manifest, which will address issues within the shipping industry.
The Vice President, and he was advised by the expert from the same GRA, Customs, Gapoa, Shipping Line, they were all there on the committee. Why they don't want to use something that the Vice President has set up a committee and brought up, and it's for free. The bottom word is, the underlying factor is the free aspect of it. It comes as no cost to the business community. Why do they want to overburden the business people? Because if they are affected, their business will go down and it will affect us directly. We have experts who know what they are supposed to do. They know that some of these things you need to go through proper channels. In fact, we have even questioned the legality of it.
On his part, the president of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders, Kwabena Fuswapia, maintains the committee asked to look into the initial issues of all stakeholders misled the president. He was speaking this morning in an interview with JoyNews at Tema.
All along, GRA has shown bad faith. We mentioned it to them. And if this is what they actually did, they've shown bad faith. Because this was supposed to help the president come to a better conclusion. so that we can all move the ship of the nation forward. But that was not to happen. So if the story is being told out there, let it be told that we were very clear in our minds how the conversation went. But what they led the president to believe is probably why we will be here today. And seeing that one of our members has actually taken this issue to court. And the Commissioner General, I have been told, was served on Friday. We are hoping that he will jump onto the last flight and do the needful.
Which is what?
Because he's been served a writ of summons. We hope that in keeping with the dispensation under which we are today, adherence to the rule of law, he will suspend this policy for the president to be properly briefed, for the right things to be properly done, so that if this thing will be done, it has to be done well. But these half-baked solutions will not solve anybody's problem. If you look at the concessions that have been given, it virtually waters down whatever claim that you said CTN was going to come to town with. It virtually waters it down to nothing.
All right, so we'll still stay on this, and we'll be linking up to our correspondent, Komla Adom, who is currently stationed at Tema, to bring us some updates on the first day of implementation of the CTN. But before then, government has set a new deadline in November to roll out the tax stamp policy for the textile industry in the country. This initiative is a new strategy introduced by the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Ghana Revenue Authority, and other stakeholders in the sector to deal with the influx of pirated textiles on the Ghanaian market.
This is not the first time there's been an attempt to address the issues in the textile industry. It's happened many times, and we somehow, for whatever reason, we seem to start, stop. We don't want to do this again. So we are taking our time. We are going to 3 or 4 different places here. We are here, and it's not by chance. This is the border with Togo. We're going to be in Takoradi. We're going to be in Kumasi. We are going to be in Tamale, and we're going to be in Accra. And we're looking to spend time with everybody, the retailers, the importers, manufacturers, and also the consumers. Because at the end of the day, one of the things we're trying to do is give the power to the consumer so that you can, at the end of the day, make the choice in terms of where it is. So we're doing this in our hope, and our plan as we speak here is that by the middle of November, we will kickstart this whole program. And by that time, we would have had another opportunity to give you exactly the steps we're following. But over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we are sensitization, taking feedback from people, getting comments. So for instance, today, even here, one of the comments that came across is that we should have some kind of a call center, especially at the beginning, so that when people are not sure, a question was asked, what happens if I go to a retailer in the marketplace and I'm able to see by my scanning, because we're going to have an app that allows you just to scan and see whether it's real or not. If I don't want it and the retailer doesn't want to take it back, what do? Do I start fighting with them? No, we don't want any of that. So these are some of the feedback we have, and then we may put a number there for people to call to be able to engage, etc. So these are what we're looking to do. Well, you know, it's interesting. It's the first one we come here, but we actually started in June of this year. We had a huge town hall meeting, and you know, the process of sensitization takes time. It takes time. And as you also know, this morning, I even went to a local radio station and asked somebody to translate into airway for me. Unfortunately, I can't speak. So that we got calls.
All right, so still doing revenue matters. Let's now cross over to Tema, where my colleague Komla Adom has been monitoring procedures on the first day of the implementation of the CTN and brings us some updates now. Komla, good afternoon. Welcome to the marketplace. Now, how has it been so far?
Well, Emmanuel, it's been a very busy atmosphere here at the port.
Atmosphere here at the ports, people are doing business as usual. Those who are left with some of the other processes in terms of clearing the goods are doing that. But I've been speaking to some of the importers right here. They are unenthused about the implementation of a cargo tracking notes policy by the Ghana Revenue Authority. Earlier, I spoke to the Executive Secretary, Asakia Wingobit, and he says they are going to be forced to pass on any extra charges from the implementation of a CTN onto the consumers, who are going to bear the brunt of all these issues that are arising as a result of agitations following the implementation or the announcement of the implementation of a cargo tracking note system. Earlier, Emmanuel, I have to tell you that in an interview with Mr. Awingobit, he says clearly the GRA officials are breaching or violating the law by going ahead to implement this, even though there was an interlocutory injunction application on this particular process. And so they say they are going to resist every attempt by government to impose this particular cargo tracking notes on them. And he makes the point that at a meeting between the Ghana Revenue Authority and 5 trade unions, GUTA inclusive, the importers and exporters, and all these other trade union groups, there was an agreement or some recommendations for the policy. But it appears that when the policy document was taken to President Akufo-Addo, it might have been altered according to what the exporters and importers tell me. And so the final document that went to President Akufo-Addo for vetting and approval did not have the inputs of all these trade union groups who were in the committee or consultative forum put together to ensure that they make recommendation inputs towards this. So they say they suspect that GRA officials must have smuggled in some foreign documents and presented it to the president to make it look like all the unions have agreed to the policy, and so they're calling for the original, the genuine documents. They say they want to see the documents which was given to President Akufo-Addo, which got his pass, and then we are seeing the implementation of a cargo tracking note system. So that's just a wrap of what's been happening here at the Tema ports. Work, as you can see from the shots, people are containers are being cleared in and out. But the substantive issue, which is the disagreement of the importers and exporters to the cargo tracking note system, remains. And they say they are going to be pushing, they're going to be resisting until they hear from governments making a bold decision to announce the suspension of a policy manual.
Now, Kamala, has it affected work at the port in any way? Has it slowed down, procedures at the port in any way?
Come again, Emmanuel.
Yes, so I was trying to find out from you, Kamala, whether this particular issues, has slowed down the process, the clearing process at the ports. Kamala?
Well, if you're asking about if the processes, for the implementation of a cargo tracking notes have begun here at the Tema ports, yes, they have begun. I spoke to some people in there. They tell me that indeed GRA officials have been there. They have been there to see to, the rollout of this particular plan. Earlier in the day also, the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority had a press conference where he reiterated government's commitment to ensure that this policy is rolled out to the letter and it's implemented to the letter. So earlier when we got here, we spoke to some individuals in there who told us that GRA officials had been here and they are, trying to see to the smooth take-off of this particular policy. But that's just one side of the story. As I have said earlier, the importers and exporters themselves, the freight forwarders, are still opposing this particular directive. So there's likely going to be a clash, of some sort, because the freight forwarders, the importers and exporters, GUTA members are opposing the particular implementation of the policy. It appears it's only the GRA officials who are going to be here to be, supervising or superintending over the implementation of this policy. But Mr. Wingobit, the Importers and Exporters Association's Executive Secretary, tells me the impact of the implementation of a policy will be felt after about a month or 2 months, where they can be able to properly assess if the policy is being actually rolled out or not. But as it stands now, they cannot even tell on their own if the policy rollout has taken off themselves.
All right, many thanks for that incisive report, Komla Adom, reaching us live from Tema, where the CTN policy is said to have kick-started this morning, not affecting that much procedures at the Tema port. Let's now cross over again to another story which is also trending on our bulletin today. And President Akufo-Addo has hinted the Ministry of Energy and Finance will soon present to Parliament a regulation on oil resources revenue distribution. The bill, when passed, will ensure that communities where oil and other natural resources are sited won't be affected negatively, as well as enjoying the benefits of the proceeds from the resource. President Akufo-Addo made the revelation in his address to officially launch the first oil and gas licensing round in Accra. Meanwhile, the Minister of Energy, Peter Amewu, has sent a clear indication to participating companies that any false documents or misrepresentations during the bidding process will be disqualified. Let's speak with our correspondent, Ebenezer Sabote, who is on the launch grounds to give us some more updates. Eben, what can you report?
So, Abuaji, as you rightly said, some moments ago, the president launched the first bidding process for the oil blocks in the Western region. And let me put on record that these are 6 oil blocks that have been reserved for the process. When you look at the distribution, it's such that 4 of these blocks will go through competitive bidding, whilst 1 goes for direct negotiation, and 1 is being reserved for the GNPC, that's the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation. The president did mention that many a time, when you look at experiences from the various oil exploration activities, the communities in the various areas have been affected adversely by the exploration process. But he has charged the Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Finance to come out with a law so that Parliament will pass it, such that the distribution of oil resources will be done equitably. This will also ensure that these communities that are affected negatively have something to be compensated with. He didn't give timelines anyway to this, but he is sure that when this is done, at least every Ghanaian or every person in this country will have a share of the oil resources.
Ebenezer, I just want to find out, did you get a feel that, the oil block allocation, the first round of the bidding process, has generated so much, excitement by, international oil companies who want to explore more oil in our country?
There hasn't been a mention on that. Meanwhile, what the minister did mention is that both locals and internationals are free to bid in this process. There hasn't been any indication that the locals will be given some preferential treatment. However, what they are going to do is that they will ensure that at least at every company that comes as an international company will have a local participation. So a local equity of 5%, meaning that if you are an international company coming for the bidding process, at least you should have a local participation of not less than 5%. So whenever you are coming, they will check all this before going through the process. You cannot come in as a fully international company and you will be accepted. There should be some little level of local participation in the process.
Many thanks for your time, Ebenezer Sabote. He's been reaching us live from the launch of the first round of oil and gas licensing blocks, which took place in Accra today and was conducted by the president. Let's now speak with energy expert Ishmael Ejekumhene to analyze some of the issues inherent in this particular development. Good afternoon and welcome to the marketplace, Ishmael.
Good afternoon.
All right, so it's a landmark launch of oil and gas, licensing blocks or licensing rounds, as so to speak. Now, what's your take on this development so far?
Well, you probably know that transparency and proper accountability has been the bedrock of everything that we've been doing since we found oil. And one of the things that we've been clamoring for is a move away from this direct negotiations to competitive bidding. So this was captured in the EMP bill at 919. So this is, I think, is a very good beginning, a very good start, and it's going to lead to a situation where everything is done in a transparent manner, and we will get the most out of our oil blocks.
All right, now Ishmael, as much as this process would ensure transparency in oil block allocation, it still behoves on the minister to actually, appoint one company out of the lot for, a license? Does it not undermine transparency in this regard?
Well, that's the only issue that I believe civil society fought, but we couldn't get it expunged from the law. But the minister would have to explain why, especially where they decide to not to even subject a given block to competitive bidding. The minister is enjoined by the law to justify why they go in that route. Otherwise, I don't think the power of the minister could be exercised arbitrarily. They will have to explain why some blocks are going to be subject of competitive bidding and others will be allocated based on direct negotiation. But yes, ultimately there has to be an awarding authority, and that has to be the minister. But this marks a very important milestone in our oil and gas industry.
Now, finally, also, there are some concerns that, despite the fact that we want locals or Ghanaians to participate in the industry, Ghanaians may not have that financial strength or financial muscle to actually, take a part or a chunk of the oil and gas resources. What's your take, and how should government approach this?
It's always been a big issue, because if you look at the kinds of investments that are required in the sector, you need to have a lot of financial muscles to be able to even take up 1 percentage point stake in the industry. So if we're not careful, we'll end up having locals only fronting for maybe the same internationals that we're trying to avoid them having virtually everything. So I think we need to start moving into the realms where individuals are going to come together to be able to raise the needed capital to be able to participate, because obviously even our local banks don't have the money to even lend to these people to get them. So let's take Jubilee, for example. The development cost alone was over $4 billion US. Even if it's 1%, that's about $400 million US. That's a lot of money for an individual. So I guess it's not just going to be Ghanaians only based in Ghana, but once you're a Ghanaian, you should be able to mobilize and be able to take part. But it's going to be a huge challenge when it comes to getting the indigenes to actually invest in the sector.
All right, many thanks for your time. Ishmael Jukumini is an energy expert. Now, away from that, Ghana's ambassador to Ghana is worried several companies which exported under the AGWA initiative have collapsed and are unable to take advantage of the trade agreement. Dr. Bafwe J. Beria is admonishing government to revive the companies under the One District, One Factory initiative. We'll bring you details of this particular story in our subsequent bulletins. But for now, that's it for the marketplace. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Emmanuel Akwaji.